This is Yusuf Wiley coming at you again. We're talking about a very sensitive subject. It's not so sensitive, but it's one of those subjects that many people have to come to grips with as it relates to lifers coming home from prison. A lot of calls come in often to our organization about individuals, families, loved ones, mothers, wives, about their person that they're having in prison right now that they go to visit on the weekends. They spending time, on the highways going to visit them, and they're still in prison. And they look at us and they see that many of us have come home. We've left those places, even though we were lifers as well, and they're trying to figure out why their loved ones are still in prison. And this is a really, really common phone call that I receive on a regular basis as to, what's going on? They're not, I don't know what they're doing to my son, or I don't know what they're doing to my husband. He's been down since he was 17 years old. He's been in prison since he was 19 years old, and he's 50 years old, and he's still not out of prison. What's going on? How can you help him? Please, can you help? And, one of the things that I ask after the follow-up question that I ask when this is presented to me is, okay, where is your loved one serving time right now? And in most cases, I'm hearing Calipatra and, Pelican Bay, New Folsom, at Salinas Valley State Prison. And for those of you out there that may be listening, you understand that when you're serving prison time, if you've been in prison that long, you should not still be at maximum security prison. So the prisons that I just ran off to you are actually maximum security prisons. And the way it works in the state of California, in most cases, for lifers, if you're not serving life without the possibility of parole, but you have life with the possibility of parole, then the chances are, after a few years of confinement, just really depending on how long it takes for you to just get it right, to figure it out. Hey, it's time to reform. It's time to get my life together. It's time to read books. It's time to go to church. It's time to go to the mosque. Whatever the case may be, whatever, propels your reform, these are some of the things that we see. So after a few years or so, they have what they call a point system. And this point system, after you've been in prison so many years, you do a good program year to year. They have what they call an annual review. Once they do the annual review, you're taken in front of a classification committee. And this classification committee, look at your program, review what you've been doing every day, see that you're either going to school, maybe you're taking college courses, maybe you're working at the prison. You're doing something that's productive, and based on that, as long as you don't have any disciplinary actions, your points drop. So each time your points drop, and give you an example. So if you came in and your points was maybe 59, 60 points, then you were considered maximum security material, level 4, what we call level 4. And there's two type of level 4s. There's what they call a 270 design, level 4, and then there's the 180. The 180 is that's like saying basically a level 5. It's the highest you can go. And prisons like Pelican Bay, prisons like Salinas Valley have what you call the 180, which is the highest level of security or maximum security prison in the state of California. Then you have the 270 design. Now, these are all cell living environments, institutions. These are the institutions where you hear about on the news all the time. A war. There's a war between the Hispanic inmates, the Latino inmates, and the African American inmates, the white and the black. All of this craziness, right? These are the prisons that you always often see on YouTube and on these prison shows that they have highlighting CNBC and all this stuff about the prison riots. So these are maximum security prisons. So my point is, if you're a man, if you're a husband, if you're a boyfriend, if you're a son, if your uncle is still at these prisons and they've already been in prison 20 something years, then clearly there's something wrong. Something is going on. And, I've been there, done that. And a lot of times what's sad to me and what breaks my heart sometimes is that you have these families that are running back and forth up to these prisons, risking their lives on these highways. They really, literally, risking their lives on these highways. Now, I'm not a hater. I'm not hating on individuals that I love to see people maintaining their family ties, but let's keep it real too. Don't have your wife, don't have your mom, 80 years old, on the 5 freeway going across the grapevine to most of these prisons, and you're not programming. You're still gang banging. You're still shooting up drugs. You're still getting high. You're still getting busted with cell phones. You just ain't changed. And what that does is you're on the phone saying, yeah, baby, it's all good. It's almost over, babe. But she don't know you just got a write-up, what they call a 115. Ask them about a 115. They got a 115 2 weeks ago, and when they go to the parole board for parole consideration, they're going to say, hey, what's up with this? You just got a disciplinary action 2 weeks ago, and you before us asked them to be paroled, released from prison, and you're still not following the basic rules and regulations of this institution, of the CDC. So these are the things that's really difficult, and you see it. The picture that I use for this particular broadcast is, for this podcast, is individuals that was in prison, with the exception of one of my guys on the picture, but all the rest of us were lifers. We were lifers, and eventually we came home. And when it was much harder. Now today, a lot of lifers are getting out, and I hate to say, some of them are going to screw it up for the guys that are still inside. That at some point is going to deserve to come home, especially the ones that just started doing their time. That's only been in maybe 6-7 years, and they're doing a good program. They're getting their GED. They got college courses under their belt. They're doing vocational trades. They're taking up AA classes, AA and NA, anger management. They're doing all of the right stuff. So if your guy or girl is not doing the right things to be released from these correctional institutions, then you have to understand that. You have to understand what's going on. Why is it? Why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult for this person to get it right? And this is what we're dealing with. And our program, the Timeless Group, this is one of the things that we set out to do. We told ourselves, look, we're not going to play with this. If we're going to really take on this rehabilitation, self-help programming and developing programming, that would be essential. And that would be a actual essential theme of the Timeless Group, then we're going to do it right. We're going to really take it serious. And we looked at a lot of the various principles, the restorative justice principles that were out there, and we decided on just true bona fide, remorse principles. How do you really have empathy? We focus a lot around the areas of empathy, having remorse. What is remorse? Truly feeling sorry, never repeating the offense again, and truly asking for forgiveness, from the victims, even if you don't do it face to face, but maybe by letter, if that's allowed in your case, or privately between you and your maker. However you see fit that's appropriate for your circumstance. So this is what we're about. And, Timeless Group, understanding the importance of true reform, understanding the importance of true rehabilitation, we set out to formulate programming that would actually meet the need of the person, not so much of the institution. A lot of people, when they initially got with us, they said, I'm gonna get me a certificate, so I'm gonna sign up for the timeless program, so I can get me a certificate, so I can get out of prison. But once they got there and they began going through the courses, they realized that it was something real there. It was individuals, it was men that was really prepared to change. We talking about people that was thugs. We was thugs. I mean, we was gang banging, we was blood and cripping, we was Sereno, we was Nathaniel, we was, Mexican this, Mexican that, black this and black that. So I mean, we came in with a lot of baggage, and we left out of there, really understanding the power of forgiveness, the power of empathy, the power of truly being remorseful for one's actions of the past, and not returning and repeating those same actions. Because we knew once we did that, and once we went before the parole commissioners to be considered for parole, that once these things were reviewed, our files was reviewed, and they really got a chance to look at the person, that they would let us free. And that's what happened. So now today in the state of California, you see thousands of individuals over the last 5 years that's been released, including myself. So I really, really hope that, some of you folks that's out there listening, that might be listening, that have made that call, that have wrote me that letter or sent me that email and said, hey, why my man's still in prison? Now, in some unique cases, some very not rare cases, but these cases that have a lot of notoriety. Now, if your husband or your dad or whoever it is that's serving life in prison, if they had a notoriety case, then that could affect their release. But at the same time, they should not still be at maximum security prisons if they've served that much time already. So these are things that you should have that discussion with them. You need to really talk, to them about this idea of reform. If you don't have that conversation with them, then you're basically enabling them to continue their path inside. Being a person that truly don't care about reform, a person that does not care to go and attend these programs that's inside, and I've ran off a few of them that usually exist. There's a lot of programming now in the state of California in these various institutions, and your loved one need to be taking advantage of those programs if they really want to be free again, and not just take advantage of them, but actually internalize what is being said in those meetings so that they can truly one day come home and not recidivate. And then, in turn, make it easy for the rest of us to come home. Peace. That's where I'm at today. Much love.